Hey, welcome everyone. I see you guys dropping into class. This is awesome. Welcome to today's episode of the Dough Doctor. I am your host and baking expert, Chef Colette, and I am live from beautiful Los Angeles, California. So let me know where you're logging on from and what's going on. What good things happened this week for you? We want to know. They can be baking related or not baking related. It doesn't matter. We're going to celebrate our wins today on the Dough Doctor. I have a great show planned for you. We've got questions from last week to carry over. Actually, just a little bit more discussion because we always answer all our questions here on the Dough Doctor before we wrap. A little bit more of a discussion on flour and questions that came in yesterday. Thank you so much for putting in, adding your questions to the Friday call to action, questions for the day show. And I got a nice little demo for you today that I think you're going to really like, and it's super useful. All right, so let's just get started. Hello, Patty. Hello, JG. Hello, everyone. And welcome, welcome, welcome to the show and the kitchen. All righty, so last week I talked about protein, flour, and protein content in flour. Now, you might not think about it very much. I mean, usually we're just in the baking aisle getting our usual brands of flour, the ones that we love. You know, mainstream flours. Some of you may love King Arthur. Some of you may love Gold Medal. You might be big Bob's Red Mill fans. But not every brand has that protein number on the package. King Arthur does, and I noticed that Bob's Red Mill has added it, which is a good thing. And just to recap from last week, for those of you who were on the show and maybe you didn't make last week's episode when we were talking about this initially. So to recap about it, protein content matters in flour because it determines the outcome of the product we're making. We want to use, when we make a yeasted dough or bread, we want to use a higher protein content flour. When we're making cakes, we want to use a lower protein content flour because that extra protein, once we mix the dough or mix the batter and we activate our old friend gluten, well, that protein is either going to make that extra protein used improperly could make our beautiful cakes too tough, and also then for our breads, if we use the wrong flour, then we might not have enough structure to get a good rise once our yeast starts to get active. All right, so this is from Salty Sweet Bakes. She had messaged me after last week's show, and she said, please discuss a little bit more about flour. So I am just looking to see, because I am, as I always tell you, I'm blind. And, well, not really blind, just a little bit. And I just wanted to make sure there were no questions or comments coming up early in the comment section. All right, so let me show you what I've got here. Bam! So I buy my flour in 10-pound to 15-pound. That's what I usually store in my house. Because as I've told you guys, I make all my own bread. For me, that's my self-care, is to make sure that I'm not eating any processed bread. I mean, I know there's some really good breads out there, like Ezekiel bread, and there's some really good whole grains. But for me, I like to have my own little hands making my own bread. And I've actually been doing that for several years. It's not just something that's been born out of my singlehood. I did it when I was married as well. So, anyhow, I digress. Let me tell you, so you may not keep as much flour, and that's okay. But this is gold medal, better for bread. Just so you know, I'm not endorsing or de-endorsing, I'm just letting you know. This is King Arthur all-purpose flour. This is 11.7% protein. It's on the package, that's easy. Gold medal, better for bread, unbleached, always, always. Let's try to use unbleached flour, except for those rare cakes where the amount of sugar is more than the flour. And by the way, our good friends at King Arthur, they do make a lovely, and I mean a lovely, unbleached cake flour. All right, and then I have gold medal, all-purpose, unbleached. Make sure to read the package carefully. Make sure it says unbleached. Then I have some whole wheat flour. So the purpose of all this flour on this table in front of you is to teach you something really important. I'm going to review from last week. Cake flours are 6 to 8% protein, which is why cakes melt in our mouths. All-purpose flours are between 9 and 11% protein, so that's why we can pretty much use them. We can get away with using them for almost everything. Now I know King Arthur is 11.7, but 11.7, it's a little bit higher than that usual all-purpose range. That's just how they do it. And it definitely makes, I mean, you can pretty much sub King Arthur all-purpose for bread flour, and you might notice that the dough is a little stickier because all-purpose flour is a blend of soft and hard flours, so it might hydrate, absorb the water a little bit differently. So you might notice, oh, maybe I have to sprinkle in a little bit more flour, not much, just to get that consistency I'm used to. Now Patty has a question. She's saying, why is gold medal better for bread? Well, Patty, it's not. It's just their slogan. It's a tagline they invented decades ago and stuck on the label and exists today. Like, look, it just rolls off my tongue. Gold medal, better for bread, because I think I've been buying bags of gold medal since I was 14, since Mrs. Borelli's bread baking class in high school. So yeah, just rolls off the tongue. It is just as good as King Arthur bread flour, or if you're buying your flour from Central Milling, it's a good solid brand. And the folks that run gold medal are pretty intentional with their how they manage their product. So okay, so anyhow, now before we go on to demo, I want to mention about how you, standing alone in the baking aisle with your phone, because we always have our phones 24/7, can determine the amount of protein in a bag of flour if it's not listed, okay? Ooh, great question. Kate has a question. Kate, hold that question. I'll be there. I'm going to finish this thought, and then I'm going to clear the table, and we're going to go. So this, I know it's backwards. I dream of the day where I have big screens I can touch and I can give you all this great information, and they are coming. I'm manifesting. I know this is backwards, but you're going to look for the nutritional label, and the way we determine the amount of protein is we look for the amount of protein per serving. So for example, oh my God, here we go again. There's 3 grams of protein in a serving of this flour, all right? So what we're going to do is, we are going to take the number of grams and in a serving, which is 3, and we're going to divide it. Listen. Number of grams per serving times 100. That's going to be 300. Then we look at the number right here, the number of grams in a cup, and we divide that 200 by 30. And what that's going to give us is about 7, oh my God, I have to do the math on the phone, but that's okay. You would all be doing your math on the phone anyway, correct? Yes, unless you're genius. All right, 200 divided by 30. 300 divided by 30. Oh, that's easy. Duh. There's 10 grams. This is the protein percentage of this flour is 10%. And remember in the beginning, I told you most all-purpose flour is 9 to 11. So this gold medal unbleached falls right in the dead center. All right? So that's how you do it. The number of grams of protein per serving times 100 divided by the serving amount will give you the protein percentage. If you just have to know. And that's good too if you see you happen to see an interesting bag of flour that you want to try, maybe a boutique flour, and you want to know the protein content. By law in the United States, it has to have a nutritional label on it in order to be sold, so that'll be somewhere. Okay? So Kate's question is asking, what is the shelf life normally for homemade bread? That's a great question. And JF, I see your question as well. Let me clear my table quick. Get those out of the way. Get this out of the way. Okay. So the shelf life at room temperature for homemade bread is basically about a day and a half. And the reason for that is it has no commercial preservatives in it. The only preservatives in our homemade baked goods are sugar and fat, all right? And then sometimes if we're making something that has like a sour cream in it, sour cream is a good keeper. If you make sour cream muffins, they'll stay fresher longer. The acid in the sour cream contributes to the product staying fresh. Anyway, not long. So Kate, what you're going to do is you're going to freeze your home baked bread. And what I do is I love toast. I mean, I don't love toast. I love toast and jam. It's like such a lovely, old-fashioned, thoughtful breakfast. So I make usually honey oatmeal bread for toast. At least, I don't know, once a week. So that finished loaf of bread I let completely cool, and then I cut it into slices, whatever thickness I want, thick toast, thin toast, depending if I'm feeling thick or thin, and I freeze it like that. Just like you'd throw a bag of sliced bread in the freezer, and then when I want to thaw it, I'll take out my 2 slices, put them in a plastic bag that I keep for just that thawing purpose, and I let them thaw, and then I make my toast. So, or a sandwich, or whatever it is that I'm making. But please do not expect, bakers, your homemade baked goods to keep as long as anything you buy commercially, unless you're buying from a local scratch bakery, and you'll notice that their product stales just as quickly as yours, because there's no dough conditioners, there's no mold inhibitors. I could go on and on about the litany of chemicals that are added to our food, and so that's why making our own stuff And you guys make your decisions. You know what works for your life. For your baking, you know, I would imagine there is some category that you make with your own little hands. For me, it's bread, but for you, it might be something else, and that's totally fine. Okay, so JG is asking, where is the best place to learn about bread baking for those who want to learn more? Wow, that's a great question. That's actually a hard question because it would depend, and please let me know, JG, if you would like to learn online or you would like to go to a bread baking course. You know, you'd like to go to a school. So put that in the comments. I'm going to hold that question and I'm going to sail into demo. So today's demo is all about, we're going to make biscuits. And actually, I'm terribly remiss because one of our bakers, Anne, asked me months ago to do a biscuit demo, and it just didn't fit in, and we got carried away with, you know, Cremona and Pavlovas and lots of A's, lots of stuff. And now, finally, Anne, if you're watching, we are coming back round to the biscuits. So let me show you what I have. Because with this biscuit demo, I want to talk about I want to piggyback on something I did last week, and that was talking about building layers, flakiness, into that product that we want to be flaky, like biscuits, like pie crust, you know. So hold on. I have to move a light. So these are sexy, super sexy. These are my little biscuits, you guys can see. And actually, I made these with plant-based butter. They're adorable little squares. And I made them with plant-based butter because I ran out of regular butter. So, but for demo, I have regular butter. Okay, so now I have just enough butter for demo. It's a miracle. So what I'm going to do before I put these in the oven, I have a little buttermilk. I'm going to brush them with buttermilk, and what will happen is they will have that lovely soft texture because the acid in the buttermilk is going to break down the surface and I can't talk. And what it will do is cause it to not crust over. If you've ever had Kentucky Fried Chicken, the biscuits from Kentucky Fried Chicken the tops are super soft. And that's just the perfect example of what brushing with like buttermilk or acidulated milk, we'll go over that in a second, does. Now, the oven is at 400, and Andrew, one of our bakers, he sent in a question yesterday because the post was all about biscuits, today's biscuits, and he asked, hot oven for biscuits, medium oven for biscuits, low oven for biscuits. We start hot. So I'm going to put these in a 400-degree oven. I'm going to close the door, and I'm going to turn it down to 375. So hold on. And I'm going to set the timer for 15 minutes. Now, you might be thinking, that's a lot of bother, Chef. Why? 400, 375? Well, the reason is we've got to compensate for that oven door being open. You know, I mucked around a little bit. I'm supposed to be such a pro, but it took me a little bit, especially with my lights and the table. But even without the lights and the table, We don't throw product. I hope you're not throwing product into the oven. So you want to make sure it's hot. We need a hot oven. And then right away, close that door down to 375 because now we have baking powder and baking soda in these biscuits. That's normal for biscuits. But also the water in the butter and the moisture in the dough as it heats up is going to convert to steam. And you don't get steam without heat. So that steam causes the layers to lift. So that's why, Andrew, we're going to start hot, 400 degrees, and then we're dropping to 375. Now you may go and look at other recipes and you may see biscuits baked even hotter. But in my decades of teaching, I have seen that can be a slippery slope. So because you can have a beautiful golden brown, rich top crust, and then they're raw in the center. So I like to go 400, pop them in the oven, drop to 375, and I'm just going to keep them at 375 for the remainder of the bake. All right. Now the recipe for these biscuits is one I used in my Craftsy class, 25 Essential Baking Techniques. And it's really a good little biscuit. And so I'm going to have the recipe will of course be posted on my website, bakingwithcolette.com, on Monday, and also posted on Instagram. All the links will be on IG, and then you can also access my website. Now I'm going to show you, I always try to think what would be useful for them. And what's going to happen, bonjour Katie, what's going to happen, sorry you guys, so what's going to happen is I'm going to show you how to make biscuits in a mixer. We're not going to muck around with a bowl. This is for which we could, but for today I want to show you how to use how to make biscuits, and then you can do this technique for your pie dough and many other doughs by just managing the mixer. And as an aside question, I'm thinking of a side project. I always have projects in my head, bakers. Please put it in the chat. How many of you own full-size food processors? How many of you have full-size food processors? Patty, I see your question. We'll get back to it in a second. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine our dry ingredients in the mixer bowl. Okay, and sorry to leave the screen for a second, I apologize. All right, I don't know, this kitchen, sometimes its tininess really helps. For biscuits, we want to sift. It's really not negotiable, which was part of why I crawled all over the kitchen with you guys right here with me. Oh, you know, and here's a teaching moment. You might sift and the salt doesn't go through your sifter. And you might think, what do I do? That. Just turn that over. All right. Sift. Sometimes we can get away with sifting, all right? But other times we can't. So I'm getting food processor. Kate has one. Pistol Packing Mama says she's not used one. All right. Thank you guys so much. You can keep adding. That's very helpful for me. All right, so now I've sifted, you saw me sift the ingredients. I'm dropping the butter on top. This is regular butter. This batch of biscuits is going to be regular. The ones in the oven are plant-based. And what was I going to say? Patty, the brand of butter that I used, I took a break from Earth Balance, and it's actually Country Crock. But I am teaching at Escoffier, my regular teaching job. I'm teaching a plant-based baking class, and we are making our own vegan butter, which is really, really interesting. All right. So now, you use the paddle. And that's why I asked about the food processor. My question I asked because those of you who use one or have one know that for some recipes you pulse. So we're going to pulse in the mixer. And also, I have this project, food processor project I'm thinking about. This butter is ice cold. I cut it up and I threw it back in the fridge. Now you can make biscuits with a combination of shortening and butter. But unfortunately, I am low tech, but that's okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut in the butter with the mixer. I'm on low speed, and you can hear it, bakers. I'm turning it on and off. And what this does now, Don Deco, another one of our bakers, asked me how I incorporated the butter. Now, butter for biscuits, and basically any doughs where we cut in the fat, either by hand or by mixer, they have to be cold. They cannot be room temperature. So, using this technique, the butter has to be cold. The ingredients, the rest of the ingredients can be room temperature, but the butter and the liquid need to be cold. Okay. All right. Now we're done with that. So you can see the pieces of butter. They're about the size of sliced almonds. You want to be able to see them. All right? And it's better if they're bigger rather than smaller. Okay? Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the liquid. And then I'm going to show you how to laminate them. So I have 6 ounces of buttermilk, and you're going to need a little extra for brushing the tops. So I want you to make a little bit of extra or portion out. This is 6 ounces. You're going to need a little bit for brushing the top. If you make your own buttermilk, which is regular milk or plant-based milk with 2 to 3 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar or lemon juice. We've talked about this before. You mix it, you set it to sit for 5 minutes. You'll notice it separates a little bit. That's normal. Okay? Oh, that's perfect. Now this recipe, you don't have to dribble in. All you have to do is just dump it in. And I'm pulsing. See, we get scared with the mixer. We think, how can I use a mixer? I'm going to go too far. No, you won't. No. So that's it. And any of you who have ever used your old food processor or maybe your new food processor for baking, you're like, oh yeah. The food processor was very popular at one point. We made everything in the food processor. And doughs and batters and pie crust. But it's gone by the wayside. So I don't know. Might be time to bring it back. Okay, see? Then you're going to use a bowl scraper. And you're going to scrape the bottom. And there is always a little bit of flour. Okay? Dump that in. You notice I didn't use my little hands. Not until I really try to not use my hands. And I am literally building in layers on the work surface with my bowl scraper. Okay? And I don't mind this little bit of powder. It's going to be okay. So now what we're going to do, for those of you who have ever made croissants, you know that the magic is in 3 turns. But when we're everyday laminating and we're learning to laminate, we're going to do 1, 2, 3 right in a row. Okay? So that means you're going to have your little container of flour. And if you want to clean your board, clean your board. We want to work as neat and tidy as possible. Little flour down. And then I'm going to roll this toward you guys. I'm going to roll it about a 1/4 inch thick. And it's going to be rough, okay? So can you see there? You see how this looks? It is not perfect, so my little croissant bakers, don't freak out. Do not. It's rough. You're going to stretch out the corners, and you're going to fold it in thirds, like an old-time business letter. Then you're going to give it a 1/4 turn, and you're going to pound it out. And if you feel like, oh my God, it's sticking, you're going to put a little flour on the pin. You're going to roll it out to about 12 or 13 inches and about 6 inches wide, and you're going to turn it. You're going to fold it. Turn, fold, turn, fold. I need someone to write me a rap song just for this process. I think that would be hilarious. So that was 1 turn, 2 turns. It looks just like this. It's a little package of dough. Woo, it's hot in here with these lights. That's okay. Okay. And another really helpful tool is not right at my fingertips this moment. So another fold. Just like that. And right away, we're going to roll this out to a 6 by 6 inch square. Put it in the comments if you have gotten your, has anybody picked up 2 rulers? I mean, have you, a yardstick yet from your favorite home supply store? Anybody done that yet? Or a paint store? So you have sticks to help you roll or measure? Nope, nobody yet. Well, I highly recommend it. Like this. All right, 6 by 6. Okay? And we're going to make, this is how I made those adorable little squares. When I was married to Chef Daniel, we used to go to this restaurant in downtown LA called Emerson Royce Bar. I don't think they survived the pandemic, but they had the cutest little square biscuits, so that's where I got the idea. So thank you, Emerson Royce, wherever you are now. And with my ruler, I would mark off 2, 2 on the one side, 2 on the other side, and then I would cut. But I want to show you this amazing thing, and it is a 5-wheel pastry cutter. Woo! It's also an accordion. No, just kidding. And I'm going to use it to mark my dough that way, and then mark this way. Okay? Super cool. Then I'm just going to take a knife and I'm going to cut. Whoops! That's our biscuits, guys. I got to finish this first before we look at them. And then I'm going to cut these and get them on a baking tray, which I have set up. And then, yeah, then we chill them for 30 minutes before baking. And the reason we chill, and I know you're thinking, well, we started with cold butter. Why are we chilling? Because I handled these, and you will handle them, and we want the fat to get cold so that the dough sets up. Think of the matrix. The dough sets up before the butter begins to melt. Now, anything like this, you want to make sure you've got plenty of room in between them. Okay? So no little pans. If you want to bake on a smaller pan, then don't ram them all together. Okay? And it's a good idea. You could even make these, they could sit for a couple hours in the refrigerator if you have an event or a party. Then you're going to cover them with plastic wrap and you're going to put them in the fridge. Or beeswax, or if you've got some really cool environmentally friendly wraps, you're going to use that. Whatever you have. But in the refrigerator, doughs can dry out. So you want to be careful. Okay? All right, let's see what happened in the oven, and I'll let you guys get back to the kitchen. We'll do one more check for questions. Ooh! Look at the lift! Look at that, everyone! Super sexy. I don't know why. Sexy is the word of the day in this kitchen. Okay. So let's, ooh, they're hot. Alrighty, I want to show you something. They are steaming hot, and it's really not a great idea to open up product when it's super hot out of the oven. But biscuits are one of those things where we have to make a sacrifice. We have to check one to make sure. And you know what? Look at all the layers. So, so cool. So let me just show you. So I'm okay with these. These are done. If you open them up and they still look like a damp washcloth, then make them like give them like 2 more minutes. You can even turn off the oven and just let them dry out. Oops, let me show you. So you see the layers I built just now in showing you that laminating? Well, that translates into the bake. Can you see the, just like, it almost looks like stair stepping. So they're really, really beautiful. And they lifted, and this again, plant-based butter is always softer. It's like working with margarine, for those of you who have worked with margarine. Okay? And look, again, I just wanted to show you the layers. So that was just a simple technique of laminating the dough after the mix and then building in these layers and flake. And you know, you could roll them out, you could cut them with a cutter. You don't have to do the Emerson Royce bar restaurant homage like I did. It's just easy. And did you notice there was no waste? I did not have to re-roll any of them, which was kind of awesome. Because one final thing before we go, when we re-roll dough scraps, and of course we would be super careful, we're still adding we're developing a little bit of gluten because we're handling the dough, and that builds in, that can make the re-roll product, I don't know what else to call it, a little chewier. Bakers, Let me just do a quick check. Oh, my glasses. I got them all buttery. You're right, pistol packing mama. I gotta grab the honey. No new questions. Thank you. I'm so glad. I feel like you guys enjoyed that. So thank you so much for joining me here in the kitchen and making this DoughDr Live such a success. And I look so forward to seeing you already next week. Think of those questions, message me with them, and then we'll be all set and ready to go. So back to your kitchens, bakers. Bake some lovely stuff, and remember to tag me. Bye!